When did you first get into scouting, and how did you get into scouting?
Well, I played, and then after I got out, I was going to retire, and I retired. I did retire too, and became a teacher at Wayland High School. And from there, I coached baseball at the high school, and then Dale Jones was a supervisor for the Phillies, who I knew, and he asked me if I'd do some part-time scouting for him, which I did. And then I went from there to, well, Rudy Rufer is another fellow that I knew and played against, and he asked me if I'd be a scout for the Dodgers in New England. And then, after I was there for quite a while, Jenny, what was I?
For the Dodgers?
Yes.
Like 30-something years.
So then Bill went to the Red Sox. How I got to the Red Sox was Bill Enos, who had the area, old-time scout, was going to retire. And he's allowed to select the guy he wanted to take position, so he had selected me. And I went over to the Red Sox. And from there, I stayed with the Red Sox and then went into semi-retirement and helping out. And I live on the Cape, and so I see all the college kids in the summer league, which very fine summer league. I mean, it's play under good conditions and good everything about it. And the other thing is they take batting practice and they take infield practice, and pitchers warm up no shortcuts, and so you get a chance to see them there. And I've stayed with him, and I went into semi-retirement, and I just do help out down the Cape, which we live in Orleans, and it's convenient to get to 3 or 4 teams, right?
What was your very first experience with a scout? If you're a player, what was your first, back in the day, your first experience with your first scout?
To talk to me?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, when I graduated from high school, a scout in Newton, Mass. at that time wanted to know if I wanted to go play for Ray L. Fisher, who was the coach of Michigan. And this is in the Vermont, a college league in Vermont, but they opened, I was non-college, but I still was allowed to play. And I went to Vermont up there, and of course we had they already had a pretty good pitcher by the name of Robin Roberts. So I didn't start when he was starting. So, and I played there for 2 years. I went to Michigan State, and then from there I went back to the day we got into the Big Ten. At that time, they went back and ruled us ineligible because we had played in the summer league, which was allowed to be. You were allowed to play in that summer league before, so they were doing. So we couldn't play, so they were going to appeal it, but I thought it was time to move to pro scouting, not pro scouting, but playing. And then a fellow by the name of Chuck Ward, who worked for the Phillies at that time, at the end of the Phillies, as I said, Phillies that time. And at the end of the season, I signed with the Phillies at that time, and then later played. And I went to, I was in AAA and A and so forth, and then they decided, excuse me, that before that happened, there was a war going on, and I was drafted by the U.S. Army. Spent 21 months in the service, and after I got out of there, I was invited to spring training at the time and played, my first year I played in Toronto in the International League. And then during the service time, we did have baseball in the reserves, but I was lucky I got there early. You only could have so many pros on a team. So I got that, and then we stayed there that year, and then let's see, I went to spring training in Florida, and then I played a little bit at Baltimore, and as I say, Schenectady in the Eastern League, and from there. And after a while, I decided I wasn't going to go to the big leagues, and there was a position where I went to Wayland Schools, and I went there myself, and so they needed a basketball coach and a baseball coach, and then I became athletic director, and I gave up. I went to. I stopped coaching baseball, and I kind of was leaning to scouting, and I went to the scouting, as I said, with the Phillies, then the Dodgers, and then the Red Sox, and then we started. I couldn't be away a lot of the time, because a lot of times I had to leave from school at 2 o'clock to get to the game. So I spoke to my wife and decided that I could give it a try, which I did, and of course she's been a big influence. And we've been married for 61 years.
How did you learn what to look for in a baseball player?
Well, I think the pro experience before, and what they're looking for, whether they can run, throw a hit, which you can. And that was basically. Then you learned, and you learned a little bit from the old timers. They kind of led the way, but it's completely different now. From what I've seen, is that they never talk to you or anything else about and you look at them, and if they did that, you better do that too. And so it got that way. You learned, and you talked to people and so forth. And I enjoyed baseball as a player and as a scout, but the old timers, you learned a lot from them.
As a profession, what is the best part of being a baseball scout?
You get to see a lot of games, of course, and you talk to kids, and if you have interest in them, you talk to them, and you visit the family and everything. So you have that, what kind of makeup he has, and you get there at the game early, and you stay late, and you're trying to get as much information as you want. What kind of a kid he is, is he real serious about it? And of course, a few of those kids were. And I mean, I take, for instance, a player that I signed and went to the big leagues, Lou Maloney. Now, Lou may not have been the man with the best tools, but he had the most desire. And you always feel, talking to him and everything, you always had that feeling. This guy will give you 100%, which he did, and now he's in radio. Then I'm dropping back, and then I as a scout in the Phillies organization, we had a team, the college team in Nova Scotia, Kentville. And so they had asked me to go there and manage. And so I went up there to manage. They supplied the ball players, and I went there for the summer managing. And I had some players that went to the big leagues, but Lee Earlier and Norm Gigon were I had them on my team, and eventually we ended up signing both of them on it. But and that was funny up there because a fellow, I didn't get out of school at the time early, so so we had another guy come in and help out for 3 or 4 days till I get along. But they took their baseball seriously. If we were behind and weren't doing too well, they used to say, could yell out, Bowers, we understand you're a basketball coach. We hope to hell you're a better basketball coach than you are a baseball. So we ended up winning the pennant and everything, so it worked out for us.
You mentioned that on that first team up in Vermont, you played with Robin Roberts.
Yes.
If you were a scout and you got a chance to, you know what you know now, look back and scout Robin Roberts for me, will you?
Great desire. He goes at you, and he had a good fastball, but he won a lot of games for us. And he's, as you know, he was at Michigan State, played basketball at Michigan State, and then we both played for. Managing the team was Ray L. Fisher from the University of Michigan, and we did very well, and it was an experience. He was a fine coach, especially in pitching, and we went from there. And then we used to all go back to, when we were in pro ball, we'd go back to Michigan just before spring training and work out with Ray and everything from there. But Robbie was just a great guy. Nothing bothered him, but he had a competitive experience that he went at you, and I think he won 18 games or something.
Was there a time when you went to a ballpark and you saw, somebody told you about a player, and you saw that player and you said, this is the reason why I'm a scout?
Yes. I also saw a lot of Carl Pavano, who signed originally the Red Sox and traded and so forth like that. But he was another one with great desire. I mean, he'd challenge you, he'd go at you, and so forth. But the experience I had with was helped me. The fact is, he was playing one day, and a whole lot of scouts went up, and he was terrible. He didn't have a good game at all. But I've learned you stay there until you got to see him. If you're talking big money and so forth, I think you better know a lot about whether he's going to pan out, or you're not getting a lot of the thing. But he had a bad day. All the scouts left. I was the only one there, and I was wondering whether I was wrong or not. But from there, of course, we ended up drafting and signing him, and he's still pitching.
Can you talk a little bit about, you just touched on it right now, the difference between watching a player for his performance and watching a player for his ability? That seems to be a basic thing that a fan might not understand. Can you talk a little bit more about how the scout is able to do that?
Well, you kind of course, you see the game and everything else, and he shows you the tools. He shows you he can run, he can throw, he can hit. And then you got the thing is, if it doesn't go too bad, if it doesn't go good for him, the game, will he still stay in there and do the little things that you'd want? He's going to have to. He's not going to have a great day every day, but will he bounce back and go? And it's kids like that, if you have interest in him, follow him through to see a few games, talk to them. And I think that the big thing is, they always say, can you get in the house and find out about the family? It's like that.
Tell me about the difference in scouting before the draft, and then how did things change after the draft?
Well, you're talking about if you draft them?
Yeah.
Well, before the draft, you talk to the coach, you talk to as many people you can find who know the kid a little bit. And he was, to give you an example, he was more concerned about where he was drafted than the fact is that he was thinking that they don't like me if they draft me way down the line. And that was the case, but it was whether he was signable or not. And you got to get in there and talk to people and outside of the school or any way you could to find out whether that he wants to play. And it's not an easy one to get to the big leagues. It's a 24-hour-a-day workout.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the competition between scouts for players, especially before the draft? In the days before the draft.
Well, I was telling you that I was replaced. I was recommended by Bill Enos, who was the scout in the area, and he was going to retire. He would stick with players, and he'd work in. He signed 5 players that weren't drafted. All 5 played in the big leagues. And he still, I talk to him quite often, but he never talked to anybody else. He worked alone, but he's there early and went late, but he just keep an eye on what's going on.
Does a scout like the draft, or would a scout rather not have to deal with the draft?
Well, I think that if you're let me think about here. Well, if you were in Boston and the kid is in Boston and you didn't have the draft, you'd have a pretty good place to sign them, because they're Boston fans and kids who want to play for the Red Sox. But I think it hurts you a little bit. You had to pick and choose. The guys that are, of course, the big thing is are they signable? Mm-hmm. Because don't waste your time if they don't want to play.
And are there boys who don't want to play?
Well, I think there are a few, unless the money is that good, will say I'll stay one more year or something like that.
So, but you're looking for somebody who's got the makeup, who wants to play, regardless of how many zeros are on a paycheck, huh?
Well, no, that paycheck has something they're looking forward to. When they read what the players are making. But it's, if there's nowadays, and it was my day too, that if you want to know, of course, is he signable, but well, let me think about this a minute here. I won't rush about it.
Okay.
But, it's, they all see the big money. You can see it here. And they think, some of them think they're going to get rich. in one swipe of the bat or whatever, so forth. But they'd rather play, in my case, they would rather play in the Red Sox than go to someone else.
Can you talk about the difference between being an area scout in a short summer area like New England compared to some of your colleagues who are down in Florida and South Texas and Southern California?
Well, I think they have better conditions to probably play, but nowadays they're the clubs, the kids, there's so much opportunity before you get there. I mean, talking about college leagues, so forth, which you know they pretty well showcased in the college leagues, because you get into scouting, you're scouting all those leagues with it, and you're talking to people and so about them, and you have a good idea. You're not seeing one game, and then after you can see a whole series of games and so forth. But the other thing is you've got to see what they're going to do, the kids are going to do, and so forth.
All right, tell me something that I don't know about Clyde Soukforth that I should know.
He's from Waldoboro, Maine. I met Clyde, and he was scouting in New England at the same time I was doing, and he was very interesting. He was a Ricky man. He still scouted. I hunted with him. I stayed with him and everything else, and we'd talk, and I'd always pick him up to take him to a game if I was in Maine. And in fact, we went up there this fall to Waldoboro, to the diner that he used to take me to, and it was, Clyde would tell you about the Ricky, some stuff about Ricky is amazing. Clyde said he's ahead of himself, and he's also the one that Clyde was the one who was involved with the Jackie Robinson
Right.
on it, and right now in the restaurant that he went to is kind of a life-size picture of Clyde Soukforth. And I mean, he was amazing, a man of wisdom. And if they're all, a lot of those fellas, they were Ricky people. Clyde always is the same. He's way ahead of himself on baseball. Look at the hats, helmets, and all that.
Yeah, that's right.
But an interesting man.
How much pride have you taken over the years in being a scout and being such an important part of baseball history?
Oh, it would get in your blood. You know, just the baseball and so forth, and it's a lot of pride, and people look up to you they wanted to know anything about baseball and so forth. And you got so that you had contacts. Some guys would call you and tell you that this fellow's playing, you shouldn't see him, which was a great help sometimes to find out. But it's just a fantastic feeling, especially if they move up the ladder and go there, and they have that desire. And I think you see some of them that played that are still coaching in high school. And